Commission on Thursday, February 16th, 2023, and we'll do a roll call. So I don't have all your names in front of me, but
They're on the front of your packet.
Yeah, you got
my
one.
own.
Yeah.
Get your hands off.
I'm just helping out.
We ready now?
Yep.
Okay. David Shipley is attending. Alex Rossiter, are you here?
Here.
All right.
David DeCandre, absent. Renee Radcliffe Sinclair,
Here.
Marnie Slakey,
Here.
Don Trosper,
Here.
and Jeremy Barkley.
Jeremy has resigned.
Yes.
From the commission.
Oh,
Okay.
Hardly got to know him.
yeah.
Keep him one,
For
two.
two changes to the agenda, I'd like to make one small change. We did not have an election of officers, chair and vice chair, since we did not have a meeting in January. So I need to put that up, and I think that should be the first thing. After the public comment, we'll do it after public comment, and you can make your nominations and election of a chair and vice chair for the current year. So,
Minutes.
any other changes to the agenda? I see and hear none, so approval of minutes. I know all of you took an hour and a half reading that great big thick book of minutes on October 20 or 22. So, any changes to the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Got your names and minutes for next time, I see. I heard a second. All in favor of the approval of minutes of the October 2022 meeting, say aye.
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 Opposed? Or should I do this by waving hands? Maybe that would be better next time. Okay, and any public comment? Hearing and seeing none, we're to the item added to the agenda, which is election of a chair, and following that, election of a vice chair. So nominations are hereby open.
I'd like to nominate Dave Shipley as chair.
I second that.
You were too late. I heard Trosper first, so it's been moved and seconded. Any other nominations? All in favor? Oh, no, I'll do the waving of hands. All in favor, raise your right hand.
Aye.
Opposed? You're still waving, Marnie, so you're for and against, looks like. We're to the vice
There you go.
chair. Nominations.
I nominate Alex.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any other nominations? Okay, we'll vote on Alex Rossiter as being the vice chair. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed?
Alex, you're
I
opposed.
think it's 4-1. You still got outvoted, Alex. Sorry about that.
You're stuck.
You got stuck with the job after all. Okay, taking care of that matter, we are to the Brewmaster House arson.
Okay, not the most fun topic, but certainly something that you're involved in and need to know about. I have a quick PowerPoint to show you. Thank you. I think that one. That one. Yeah, well, let me do it. Oh, I did. Okay. So, obviously you're familiar with Brewmaster's House, where it is, what it is, all of those things. On Saturday, the 21st of January, I got a call about 6 in the morning from one of our janitorial staff, originally saying that the Crosby House was on fire, but that there was a fire and fire and police had responded. and they were on scene, dealing with that. So I drove down the house and then met with, First Police to get through. They closed down Deschutes Parkway. And then by the time I got there to talk to fire, the fire was out. Thankfully, and kudos to both our police and fire, they did a phenomenal job in responding. Thankfully, since the fire was on the outside, someone saw it driving by and called it in, and it wasn't far enough into the house to set off our fire system and alert us that way. So a quick thinking motorist helped out a lot on that. So here's the house. To orient you. Okay, to orient you, this is the back of the house. And this room down here at the bottom is a storage room. It's a concrete bunker kind of room, self-contained. That door in the back is the only way in and out. It doesn't connect with the rest of the house.
Oh.
We had old event items stored in there, some old tents, some old stuff out of the log cabin that were due to be disposed of. Various odds and ends and things that we just hadn't gotten rid of yet, but were kind of on their way anyway. The only thing of value in this room was the computers. For our IT department had their computer servers in there, and those servers serve this house as well as the Crosby house, and then shooting across the river to the old Drew Tower for security there. So that room, everything in that room was total loss, and our IT people were able to save some of the computer stuff and get that back up and running, which is phenomenal because the fire department was spraying a hose right into the room when they were putting out the fire. Above that room, I'll just tell you, above that next arrow is the back porch. It was originally a porch, and at some point in the past, it was closed in to make a room off of the kitchen. That had fairly extensive fire damage as well. Again, stored in there was more special event stuff. There were probably 75 padded folding chairs, some display things for conferences, stuff from Harvest Festival, and then some odds and ends for janitorial cleaning supplies. Everything in that room is total loss. And
Okay,
then,
go back again. Storage area down below, total loss,
yeah, and then this,
and the whole porch area, total loss.
yeah, inside. And then on the third floor, we have an office which used to be used for volunteer work. So volunteers would come and they would enter things into the archive. They'd scan photos and enter them into the archive program. So up there was a desk and an old computer, and there were some pictures up there, and there's a bookcase that has a whole bunch of history, VHS tapes and DVDs, and some books. Most of the books and DVDs are okay. We have to go through those still and see if they're salvageable or not. The rest of the room, everything's going to go. Not a huge loss because the computer was super old, not supported by our IT people anymore, and as well as the printer. So really the damage to that room was the damage to the walls that the fire department did.
So is the structure okay? It's just contents that we lost?
I'll show you.
Oh, okay. I'm jumping ahead, sorry.
You can get closer. Okay, so this is the side where you can see the fire damage. Again, storage room on the bottom, back porch in the middle, and the office up here. The fire was started underneath this deck, and it's very clear from our security camera videos. You see the guy who was living across the street, homeless gentleman, living against the freeway wall, walks across the street, very nonchalant, lights a torch, and keeps walking and walks around the back of the house. And, you know, we have him just on video. He just goes down and lights it, and then he stands up and walks back across the street, turns the torch off, and goes back to his tent. So we gave that footage to the police, and they went over and interviewed the guy who was still wearing the exact same clothes he had on in the video, and he said, yeah, I
Across which street?
Deschutes Parkway.
Oh, okay, by the freeway then.
Yeah.
Huh.
So fire started down here and worked its way up right here. Had the fire department taken 10 or 15 minutes, they say it would have made it up, to the attic, and then that's when they would have probably lost the whole house. So a closer look at the real part of the fire damage. You can see there's a shelf right here. There's a shelf unit inside that storage room that had stuff stacked on it, because the wall's gone. The floor to the back porch is right here. The back porch wall. Outside.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the bulk of the damage. It's floor joist as well as electrical.
Mm-hmm.
Again, just another view of that. We had our staff, our staff is, part of what we do in our department is also take care of all the city facilities, this building, city hall, these houses. So our facility staff, responded that day, which, they had planned that they don't work on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
They rallied and helped us out and came down and, secured the house. All 4 doors of the house were broken in by the fire department. I mean, that's how they do it, is they bash in the door so they can get in and quickly, assess where the fire is. So they secured all the doors because all the jambs were broken, and then they boarded up the house.
I took a picture of that corner, what it looks like.
Yeah.
By the time I got there, it was boarded up.
Okay, so this is, the back porch room. And this is where it was boarded up. So you can't see outside, but had it not been boarded up, you would see outside of that wall, out to the grass. And then to the right where our this is the view looking from the kitchen into that back porch area. You can see there's some toast and stuff out there that kind of melted on a shelf back there. And you see the smoke damage on the door, which was closed at the time.
Did he prove the propellant on the ground and then torch the propellant?
No, what it was is we have a drain system around that house, and the drain pipe, plastic drain pipe, and it has the silk fabric on it, which is kind of a nylon material that keeps dirt from infiltrating into the drain pipe. He lit that on fire, and that burned really well, and it just worked its way around the house until it caught the siding on fire.
Yeah.
And very impressively, we had the fire inspector came from Olympia and spent a couple of hours that morning and talked me through what he was doing, which was educational for me. And he nailed it. We didn't know how it exactly had started, and he put it all back together on the ground and took samples and did all the stuff and showed me, here's exactly what happened, and it came around here and it did this, and it turns out that was right. This is the upstairs office room. So this is the door that goes out onto the roof. And this was a kind of a desk shelf kind of thing, and we have some pictures on the wall here. You can see the computers here and the printers here. So fire department, well, we don't have a lot of fire damage here. The fire department had to tear the siding off the wall to make sure that there was no fire in the cavity there. So broken door, then broken siding to the outside, and then all the walls are wood, shiplap wood, they're not drywall. So they tore that wood out to get to. So what we did, we wrapped it all up that day. Next Monday, we met with city administrator and the mayor, do an emergency declaration, repairs, and what that does is it just greatly speeds up our process so that it takes out the requirement that we bid the project, which takes a month or more to go through that. So it allows us to go out and pick a qualified contractor to come in and help us start to fix this. So we also met that day with WCIA, Washington City's Insurance Authority, which is the city's risk provider. We're in a risk pool of cities. They came down and met with us, and they've since met with us again on site to talk about what we can do and how we can do it. Our insurance coverage. We have $1 million of coverage on the house, both for structure. We have $1 million. And then we hired Heritage Restoration out of Chehalis. They do this buildings. They came recommended from WCIA, so we feel pretty good. We just finished the contract with them. Sam Osborne did last week. So this week, I met with them on site, and we went through the scope of work and the first phase of what they're doing in evaluating the house. So things are just starting this week, and then next week, we're going to start pulling things out. So the way it's going to go is almost everything on the first and second floor is coming out of the house and going to their storage facility to either be cleaned or ozoned or whatever we have to do to get it clean, because everything in the house smells like a campfire.
Mm-hmm.
Smoke damage is going to be our biggest cost.
Yeah, it is.
So, from the throw carpets to the piano to all the files, wallpaper, everything smells like fire. So part of what we'll be doing next week is doing test holes in the walls to see if the smoke smell made it through the wallpaper or through the paint and the wood to get to the insulation. And if the insulation is inundated with smoke smell, then they're going to recommend that we tear the walls down to the studs, redo that, and then new shiplap on and new wallpaper. It'll be a huge project. So, when you think, well, we have $1 million of insurance, that's a ton of money. That'll go very quickly. So I'm hopeful, and in talking with them yesterday, I'm hopeful that we can avoid having to tear the walls down. We can clean and reseal with new wallpaper, and not have to go to that extent. But just pulling everything out of the house is going to be a major undertaking. Gives us an opportunity to throw some things away. Have needed to be thrown away for a very long time. But not very convenient. Time never good. So that's what we're working through. So first phase, we'll go in, we'll pull everything out of the house. We'll evaluate what we have to do with the house, and then Sam will enter into another contract with Heritage, Public Works contract, which is actually to do the reconstruction and get into the structural part of the house. Part of that's going to be redoing the electrical system. We had planned for the new electrical panel in there anyway this year. Now with doing this and getting a permit, it's going to trigger that we're going to have to put in a new panel. That can be very expensive. The house it's not knob and tube wiring, but it's old wiring, and I think it was redone over the years by volunteers and people that maybe shouldn't have been doing anything there without a permit. So there's some sketchy areas. And if you've seen the electrical panel, it's at the bottom of the stairs next to the exit door. Pretty scary looking. It's in the wrong place next to the door and in the way when you come down the stairs. So I'm sure that the electrical inspector is going to say, so that could be a major cost.
You didn't mention the other part of the basement where the old photo files are, or where?
Yeah, thankfully, that's not bad.
Good. Yeah.
Obviously no fire there, but because that was kind of contained and smoke goes up, not down, that stuff doesn't really smell. That's an area that needs to be gone through and have stuff thrown away, and filed. But I was really worried about that because I had a ton of wood down there. And so I boxed up some stuff, some photos and some different things out of the basement, and I brought it back to City Hall and let it warm up in our office, and then had the people in our office smell it and tell me if it smelled or not. Because after you spend an hour there, that's all you can smell.
Yep.
So I think we may get away with that,
Good.
not having to take everything out of it.
That'd be good.
Time frame
9 months
from to what?
now till.
And what will be accomplished by 9 months? Is that strictly the inspection part?
No, to completion.
To completion?
So
Okay.
structural inside, outside done, and then contents in and out, or out and in.
And if it costs more than $1 million through the insurance?
They're insured Washington State Insurance is, I don't know what you call it, insured through Lloyd's of London.
Hmm.
So if it's over $1 million, then they have to go to England and take it.
Few pounds.
Yeah. So I have met with DAHP staff last week at the House. There's potential to get some grant funding if they need it from National Park Service. So they're looking into that for me. She's also going to provide some consultation for us in deciding what's valuable and what's not.
Excellent.
So really with the House, we're trying to get back to, you know, the things we have. How is it important to Tumwater? How does it relate to Tumwater history? How does it relate to the story that we're trying to tell with our facility? There's a lot of stuff in there that's old and cool, but doesn't have anything to do with Tumwater. And with the limited space we have and the amount of programming that we're actually able to do and not do, so if someone else can use it, we'll do that.
Good. You're still getting help from Olympia Tumwater Foundation and Karen and everybody there with the.
Yeah, we talked with John. John is supposed to be on the agenda tonight. We talked with John, and he offered to take the photo archive, the 4 file cabinets of photos that make up the archive. We may do that, or we may send it to state archives. So we have it
I'm
all.
curious.
Go ahead, Marty.
I'm very curious about what happened to the arsonist. He was arrested, he got charged.
He did. He got charged with second-degree arson. So outside of that, I don't know. You know, obviously, he doesn't have the resources to pay for this, so it's not like we're going to go to court and get restitution. But I would imagine he'll at least do a little jail time.
Yeah.
Is it
So,
some mental health issue or,
Yeah, substance abuse, mental health.
so it wasn't
And,
any sort of retribution against the city or anything?
Not that we know. If he said he was mad at someone. So, I mean, what else would you do, right?
And
Yeah,
is there,
Very frustrating.
do you feel good about the, the security cameras and the level of security that you have at the house? I mean, it does seem like you had some protections in place and you were able to get at the heart of it very quickly. Is there anything else that you're thinking you guys might need to do to keep your structure safe?
I don't think so. Stan Osborne, our Parks and Facilities Manager, runs all of our camera systems around town, and both this house and the Crosby House have cameras on each corner, so we have video of every side of those buildings. And it worked perfectly in this case. You can very clearly see the guy walk up and do his thing and walk away.
Good.
So I think we're good where we are. The house currently only has partial power, so we're working, that's one of the first things we're working towards is getting both fire and security power back up, so we can monitor that.
I have a quick question. Could you go back over the decision to declare the emergency declaration? And I guess what's the purview that falls under? I mean, I understand that, trying to expedite the process, but was there anything, could you just go back over that and maybe educate me just a tiny bit more, please?
Yeah, typically when the city goes and does a project, we have to go through a normal bidding process, which is putting together a scope of work and advertising that out on the street for people to bid on, various contractors that might be interested in bidding on that, to give us a quote for what they can do and what their qualifications are. That can take about a month to do that. And then from there, we have to wait till the next city council meeting, which may be anywhere from a day to 2 weeks away, and get council's approval to move ahead with the contract with the lowest bidder. And then as you go back to the selected low bidder, and then you start contracting, writing a city contract, which takes about another month to get going. So we're about 2.5 months now for a normal process. And then depending on what their schedule is and when they can start, after the contract is all done and all signed, by all parties, then they have the time to mobilize, and then eventually they'll be on site. So you're looking at 2.5, 3.5 months in the normal process to hire a contractor. And what this did was allow us to go out and pick a contractor, sign a contract right away, once we had the scope of work agreed upon, and then have them start work. So rather than, the longer the house sits and smells like smoke, the worse the things in the house are gonna smell like smoke. So we wanna get that stuff out of there as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you.
At our last meeting, we heard from the foundation about a series of things that they wanted to do in the house.
Yeah, that's all done.
Yeah, I figured that. Will they just postpone those and do them later, do you know?
Yeah, that was one of the first things for me, is what a bummer that's going to be.
Yeah.
Because we really had some cool stuff planned
Yes,
this summer.
yeah.
But yeah, we're not gonna be able to do that now.
Uh,
So we'll just postpone that.
Postpone them, because I would really love to see them still happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, if we're gonna put $1 million back into this house,
Oh, yeah.
why are we doing that? We want.
Excellent.
So that's where we are. Anybody wants to see the house, just let me know. I'll be there more than I want to. And can certainly set up the time that you can, what's going on, at any point.
Any more comments or questions? Okay.
All right.
Next item on the agenda is a certificate of appropriateness of the Brewery Park at Tumwater Falls. John, nice to have you.
Hello, hi, everybody.
Hi, John.
Hey.
You want me to take over? Can I share a screen, Chuck?
I think you can give it a try.
No? Well, here we go. Wait. Here we go.
That's me.
I got it.
Okay.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to voice my concern for the brewmaster's house because that's my greatest fear at the Schmidt house, is having someone torch it or get inside and vandalize it, graffiti. We have had several break-ins on the Schmidt house in the past few months. Luckily, we have a good alarm system and good cameras, which cost us over $50,000 to implement over the years. But it has proved beneficial, and the Tumwater police are very good about arriving quickly. But with I don't know why, but the transient activity has picked up the last week or so. I don't know, that's because they're moving them out of their camps along the highways in that area, but I see them every night, come around the house, walk through it and look at everything. So I'm still in fear of that happening. So I'm sorry that happened to the brewmaster's house, but like Chuck said, what are you gonna do, with the guy? Someone wants to come up and light something on fire, not much you can do to stop it. Just react. So anyway, we'll do what we can to help out with the brewmasters. I do want to, I don't know if Chuck has announced this or not, but Megan Ackerman has left to take another job. So she's no longer with the foundation.
Shoot,
Oh, man.
that's too bad.
But we have hired Ed Eckley, who is other historian in the area. And Chuck met with him last week or earlier this week, I can't remember. And he seems to be a good guy, good fit, and has very lots of social media background, and is looking forward to helping out. So,
John, could you repeat that name?
Ed Eckley.
Okay.
Was
very
he
good one.
in-house?
Yeah, yeah.
Was he in-house or did he come from another place or
He's from
organization?
another place. He used to run the Bigelow House. He's written the city stories for many municipalities around here, Olympia, I think Spanaway, and so he's got a master's from Central Washington, I think.
He's also worked with the Thurston County Historic Commission, particularly McIntosh Lake area.
Okay. So we'll give it a shot and see what happens, but he's raring to go. He's got a lot of enthusiasm. I think Megan just wanted to go back to her history roots, and she got a position, I think, with the company doing business with the Coast Guard up in Alaska, and they're mapping all the historical entities in the Pacific Ocean that the Coast Guard has. So kind of sudden, but that's the way things work. Okay, well, back to the gazebo here, or kiosk. So we want to put in a 10 by 10 kiosk in the park. Let me see if I can get this thing to work here. There we go. And it's gonna, I'll move around a little bit. This is what we want it to look like. This is a pre-built, well, prefab gazebo that will cost about $30,000 to put in with everything. And within the gazebo, we're going to have kiosks that will allow us to play video or a slideshow of Tumwater history, that sort of thing. And the design is to generate funds for the foundation. So we're eating away at our corpus. We don't receive any city, state, or federal funding for the park itself. So we're on our own in that respect. And as the stock market declines and our expenses increase, it's kind of a never-ending cycle. So we need to raise money somehow, and this would be one way we thought of doing it, and keep it a little bit classy too. So that's what it's going to look like. It's made out of cedar. It has cedar shake roof, and that is supposed to mimic the shingle mill that used to be damn near right on that spot. I'll show you where the spot is in a second, but that's what was in Tumwater Falls Park. I'm not sure when this photo was taken, maybe the early 1900s. But it's the same type of roof, the Western type look. And it's going to be as you come into the parking lot off of C Street. It's going to be at the end of the lot to the left. So the design put it there is to get all the people that come into that lot. So before they enter the park or go off to the right to the hatchery, they can come through this area and see it. And it'll have interpretive panels too, with the exhibits that can be changed out. So it's nothing real fancy. It's, like I said, it's going to cost about $32,000. We're getting a $10,000 contribution from Olympia Brewing Company, OB, and $10,000 from the Wildlife Department, and we're going to put up the rest.
And so it has electronic components with the kiosks. How do you keep that safe from, wind and water in Washington in the winter?
It's they're designed for the outside.
Oh, okay.
They're
Okay,
weatherproof,
good.
and it's going to
Gotcha.
be underline. All the wirings to be underground, and it's going to be credit card or debit card only, no cash, to keep people out of it.
Good.
And you can't keep people from screwing around with it, but hopefully they'll be smart and realize they really can't get anything out of it. So it's basically the way we convince the board to do this is if we get 3 people per car, and we generally get about 250,000 visitors a year. So that generates roughly 80,000 cars per year. And if only 5% of the people donate, say $3, that's what Nisqually recommends. That'll be about $13,000 a year, and hopefully it'll be more contributing. So the payback's within 3 years, and hopefully it'll keep going. And if it doesn't work, then we just have a nice gazebo there that we can put stuff in. So it's worth a shot.
John, besides the pay station, do you plan to have, you said an interpretive kiosk, what do you plan as far as displays?
Just exhibits about Tumwater, various stories that we can put up and take down. As you can see, it's a fairly broad area. So within those posts on at least 3 sides, we could put exhibits. Just for example, show what used to be there at that spot, the shingle mills, That could be permanent and, or like I said, change it out every once in a while. It's, things are pretty cheap these days to get big canvases made. So it might be worth it to do that.
Electronic display or a permanent display of some type?
But yeah, we like, if you see the open post right now on the
Yeah.
screen. Yeah, in between those posts, we could put stretch a canvas or a aluminum or a particle board, temporary, or make it permanent. That would show, maybe tell the history of the shingle mills that were in that area, the railroads, right, literally right in that spot. So the kiosk itself, there are two kinds. I showed three there. That's just because I wanted to look cool. The one on the left is just credit card only, no display. The one on the right will have a credit card, but it can play video and or a slideshow or anything you want it to. It could tell people about an upcoming Falls Fest or Artesian Brew Fest, things of that nature, or exhibits at the brewmaster's house. So we're probably going to go with the one on the right. That's the two that look on the right. We're going to go with one of those.
Okay, so you plan to have a pay station and one display post?
The display will be a pay station in it. So you can just take the one with the kind of square on the front out and take one of the other two out, and you're going to have one that'll probably be in the middle of the gazebo. This is still kind of a work in process, talking to these vendors.
And it's at the corner, we're basically at the end of your parking lot, where you turn left to go towards the other parking lot, is that?
Yeah, let me see where I am on this thing here. Yeah. So the
Okay.
most people park there, and we might put another one in at a future date if we see how this one goes.
Do most of the people, I assume, park in the larger parking lot when they first come in rather than the secondary one?
Correct.
And do most people go to the fish hatchery area first, or do they walk up the older road to the restroom area?
Yeah, then when they see the
Which
fish
way do they go
hatchery,
usually?
they go right to the fish hatchery and then mosey on their way down to our area. That's one of the drawbacks. Well, one of the problems we face at the park is the identity. People come in there and think it's a state park because of the hatchery. So we want to change that.
Well, it's hard to get people around here to realize it doesn't even belong to the city of Tumwater, so that's a problem you do have.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, commission members, any comments or questions regarding the kiosk?
I will move to approve the certificate of appropriateness, if that is appropriate at this time.
So you doing play on words there? Appropriateness and appropriate? I like that. Okay, we have a motion by Marnie. Is there a second?
I appropriately seconded.
Okay, I have a motion that has been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the kiosk?
I was just curious, would John mind going over the similarities in detail a little bit more of the new kiosk, proposed kiosk, and the model photo that it should resemble? It looks like some of the sconces might be quite different, but the but could you talk about the dimensions a little bit, and or anything more that would be reminiscent of that style for us, please?
Sure. There's not a lot I can go by here. This is a prefab. We
Oh,
looked at having them custom built, and they were getting to $60,000-$70,000.
okay.
But I can tell you it is cedar, and the shingle mill produced cedar shingles. So we got cedar and we got cedar shingles. So, and it's got a Western motif. If you look at the kind of the roof line, I
Mhm.
always look, I think of Western when I see this. So
It is beautiful.
Yeah,
Looks very nice.
yeah.
Any other comments or questions? We have a motion on the floor.
would the,
Wave a hand this time. Go ahead, John.
I was gonna say, if I could shave a couple $1,000s off it and put a regular shingle roof on, I mean, a regular roof on their shingles instead of cedar, would that be okay with the commission, or would they rather see the cedar shingles, which is actually what the mill was producing?
Well, for appropriateness, and I will appropriately say that I think it should stay with the shingles. And I don't know how the other commission members feel. So unless I have an amendment to change it to regular shingles, we will stay with cedar shingles. But I
Yeah,
will entertain an amendment if you'd like to do that.
No, I'm good with that.
Your amendment?
No, it'll look better this way anyway,
Yeah.
so,
I think so too.
I'm
okay,
with you, Mr. Chairman.
I
I'm
think
with you.
it looks appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all
I
right.
have people near me basically saying that they feel it's appropriate to stay with cedar shingles, John. We understand where you're coming from, but we're also trying to replicate an old structure that it has significance to our history in that location. So I think we have reached a compromise on the size of your building, the shape of your building, the height of your building, and the shingles and what have you. So hopefully it will come to fruition and everybody will be happy with it.
Yeah, I can,
So I do have a motion and I do have a second. I'll ask one more time. Any discussion or questions?
I have one more quick
Show of
question.
hands, please hold. Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
I'm sorry, thanks. This just came to me. I just wanted to hear about the base or the floor. Will that be a concrete slab, or will it just be the wood chips? Or could we, or how's that gonna look?
it'll pretty much look like the picture. That's probably a 12 by 12 concrete pad.
Okay,
That seems to be the best alternative. It won't get mushy or wet, and easy to clean.
thank you.
John, for clarification, is it a 10 square building? Is that what you said?
The building is 10 by 10, correct?
Height?
There should be dimensions in the package.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't catch it. I'm sorry. All right, see it. Okay, instead of waving, just raise your hand and keep it there. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? I see none unanimously. John, how soon will this get done?
Well, it'll take 3 months or so to ship it, and after that, we plan to have it up by summer. By the start of
Please
summer.
let us know when you have it, so we have a big party.
Okay. We might put a keg in there too, but do I need an amendment for that, kegerator?
Anyway,
All right.
thank you very much. You're doing a good job.
Well, thank you, everybody, and sorry about the brewmaster's house again, but again, I feel your pain, so. Anything we can do to
Counting on you
help,
to take care of it.
yeah, anything we can do to help out Foundation with anything at the brewmaster's house, we're happy to do that, so. We, by the way,
We appreciate.
just a quick update, we are renovating the Schmidt House and really revamping the archive rooms downstairs. We got a grant from the Washington Historical Heritage Fund. And it's going to be climate controlled. It's going to have fire. We're going to have fire prevention throughout the whole house. So that could be, we can give you some lessons learned on that after we put that in.
When are you gonna have it finished?
Hopefully by June.
Okay, so June for the Schmidt House, and how soon for the kiosk in that summer as well?
Yeah. Yep. And then we got the
Yeah,
park
maybe
we're still talking about.
Okay,
Yeah, I
when
read,
you have the house open,
I'm sorry, what?
maybe we can have a meeting at your Schmidt House sometime, and after you get it all completed and furnished and what have you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll give the grand tour. I also wanted to real quick, like, point out that when I read the minutes before the meeting, and in it, there was some discussion about our proposed History and Nature Center in the park. With the design we showed you is just that was a rendering. That's not the final product. We didn't think that it was approved by the commission. So, you know, we're far from having a finished product for that, and we will come back.
We look forward for you to come back with a rendition that you'd like to have in the future.
Yeah, we did. Ron Thomas took copious notes, so he's ready to do that. We'll probably have to revamp it and rebudget it too. So, okay, well, thanks everybody.
Have a good evening.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay, we are to number 8, I believe. Brew House Tower Phase 2 seismic improvement. And I assume that's you?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Are you able to hear me and see me?
Yes.
Yes,
Brilliant. So I'm delighted to be here tonight with our architect, Jim Carey of Cardinal Architecture. He's going to give you an overview of the work that's been underway. I think the last time that we saw you, I shared some photos of Jim Carey and our geotech and our structural engineers, and they were exploring underneath the brew house and looking at water and taking a peek around to see what happened underneath there. And they've taken the data from the geotech, and the structural engineers have been at work, and Jim's going to show you what seismic improvements look like for the brew tower. And I just want to kind of put in context for you. Phase 2 is focused on seismic improvements. So phase 1 was brick restoration, masonry, and roofs. So the intent there was to keep the tower from falling down. This time, we're going to make sure it doesn't tip over. And there's been a lot of challenges along the way with changes in building codes. And everything is harder in COVID, and it takes longer. So I'm excited for Jim to share the work. We'll have plenty of time for questions. Our end goal is by June 30th, we would like to have an estimate of what the cost will be for seismic improvements, so that the city council can decide if we go forward, if we bring plans to you for a certificate of appropriateness, just really look at the next step. And we did meet, Jim and I met with John Doan earlier in the week, and we've all concluded that the $2.5 million estimate for seismic improvements that we got in 2014 or 2015 might be just a little off. By what factor, we don't know. And so with that, I would like to turn it over to Jim Carey, unless the chair or a commissioner has a question before we get started.
And before you do that, could you repeat the number that you had back in 2014, 15?
That's
What was that number?
2.5 million for seismic improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And Jim Carey.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me to this meeting this evening. And I have a short presentation that I can share on the screen and walk you through the work that we've done to date and explain what the project looks like, and talk about a little bit of the future for the site as well. So don't hesitate to stop me during the presentation to answer any questions. And with that, share my screen. So These are historic photos of the tower taken, this one was taken during the study that we did during 2014, with the study that Ann mentioned, where we did some preliminary cost estimates. Picture of the tower and its condition at that time, and then an historic photo as well. So, just to give you a sense of the documentation that we're working with, these are the construction drawings from 1905, 1906. As near as we can tell, these were done in Milwaukee. We're not certain that the architects in Milwaukee visited the site. It was common for the architects to sort of work with the brewing team, create these drawings, and then they mailed them off, and then the builders were sort of on their own to interpret these drawings and turn it into the brew house that you see today. These were the building sections, and we've poured over through these drawings quite a bit, even recently, just to try and understand how the building was put together. And we'll spend a lot of time actually today working on these areas down at the bottom, which are the foundations. These are, like I said, probably designed in Milwaukee for a site that they knew it was going to be a masonry building. They knew it was going to be very heavy. So to see these sort of pyramidal shaped footings was common for displacing all of that weight onto compacted soils. That's not what we have though here in Tumwater. These were more historic photos. I like to include these in our presentation just to remind everybody of what it was like 100 years ago. And the photos that I'll show you of some of the restoration show you that we're getting closer back to that sort of the glory of the tower and the masonry, and its site is still a pretty wonderful place to be. So these are actually construction photos. You can, I'm not sure if everybody's looking at a tiny screen or a big screen, but you can actually make out men working on the roof of the brewery tower. Completely unrestrained, it looks like, just putting the copper roof on.
Kind
These
of
were
reminds me
photos-
of workers in the Empire.
It does, yeah. These were photos that we took prior to the masonry and roofing work. So you can see the erosion of the masonry, you can see the staining. These were the temporary roofs that were put on to keep it out of weather for a little bit. These were the temporary roofs here. You can see the tremendous erosion in the masonry up at the top of the tower. There were plants growing out of the brewery tower. And these next slides show the masonry restoration and the new roof on the building. So we still don't have windows. We still don't have doors, but the masonry itself is intact. And we have cornices that protect that masonry, and the copper roof on top has been restored. And this is actually that same corner of the building that I'll scroll back here. So this is that corner of the building.
Amazing.
This is a drone shot of the restored masonry. So all of the masonry that you see in these photos are actually new bricks that were produced in 2018, 2019, and made to match what was there. And there it is back in its site. So this would have been at the end of construction, end of 2018. These photos are of the moment that Ann was describing, where we have obviously the masonry tower. We can see what we can see above ground. When we were on site, we would look through these. There was a sort of a crawl space hatch opening on the south side, and there was a similar one on the north side. And we would stick a camera in there and look around, and we could see about 2 or 3 feet of concrete exposed, and then the rest was water. And we didn't know what was underneath the water. And we needed to know what that was because it had significant consequences for how we supported the structure in the future. And so the city of Tumwater brought in a giant pump and pumped out the water from this space and created a crawl space, basically, that was safe enough for the structural engineer here. This is Greg Coons from Swenson Saint-Fagé, and myself, and the person taking the photograph right behind us on the ladder is the geotechnical engineer. And it was a sort of a blue ribbon day for all of us because we got to see what we'd only kind of imagined. What's interesting is that we had anticipated sort of a relatively shallow crawl space. And it didn't make sense that they would have built a crawl space, but what we found was a 14-foot tall crawl space. That's really large. That's really tall for a building of this size. And it's not something that they would have chosen to build when they were designing an efficient building. And so what we think happened was, I'm going to scroll back to these drawings. They anticipated hitting suitable soils, and they would have anticipated that building in the Midwest potentially, or they would have anticipated hitting bedrock, the basalt, which is as I'm sure all of you know, the basalt is what creates the falls right there. There's a big plug of lava rock, and I think they anticipated hitting that lava rock as a suitable base for this heavy masonry building. And so going back, they would have started digging a hole, basically the space for this building. And they dug down, and in 1905, they might have been using steam shovels. I don't think they would have been doing this by hand. I think they would have had steam shovels. And they dug, and they got down probably about 8 feet, and they ran into a lot of groundwater, which is the groundwater that is in the crawl space. Now, they dug more, and they hoped, I think, that they would have gotten to the basalt, but they didn't make it, and they couldn't keep up with the amount of water down there. And so this drawing is a hand-drawn drawing that is in the archives of the Tumwater Foundation. And they kindly dug through, and we located this, and this is sort of the holy grail of this project. What it shows is the foundation plan as drawn in Milwaukee, supported by all these. I'm going to zoom in. Hang on. Give me a second. Supported by about 490 piles. And these piles have a line drawn across them. And this is sort of like a linking piece of steel across these piles. They just got to a point where they couldn't keep up with the water, and they realized they needed to support this building in this location. So they came up with a piling plan. These are likely Douglas fir trunks of trees. They would have been driven down to resistance. So they drove them down until they hit basalt. And what's interesting is, based on our geotechnical borings, these piles are probably only about 10 to 12 feet long. So they have this hole, it's filling with water, they drove piles, they then poured the concrete foundation on top of those piles and continued with the concrete and finished the building on top of it. And so this has significant consequences for the seismic mitigation that we're anticipating for this project. So this is, like I said, this is a big day for us getting down there, measuring what's down there, seeing the underside of the structure from below, and then seeing all of these piered foundations, which are then sitting on top of the timber piles below. So these are the new structural drawings. I'll zoom in on the section here. actually give you a little closer view. So this is the building section here on the left. And what this shows is this crawl space. This is where we were standing down below. This is about 14 feet tall. It shows the foundations and this big mat slab that they would have poured on top of it. And it starts to show the structural changes that we're anticipating making in order to make this building safe to occupy. And the plan over here is the foundation plan again, showing all these timber piles below. And then you can start to see these pieces here. These are new. These are actually called micro piles, and they are cored with a housing, and then they drill until they hit resistance, which will be the bedrock down below, and filled with rebar and concrete, and then capped and tied to the new concrete that we're attaching to the inside of that crawl space. So what we'll do is we'll drive these micro piles, some vertical, some diagonal. We'll pour, excuse me, concrete in the crawl space area, not fill it, but along the walls to create shear resistance. And then that concrete will be tied into new concrete walls on 2 of the tall floors at the basically the ground level. And then from there, we will use a series of steel members that go up through the structure up to the top of the tower. This is the sort of the standard way that we do seismic mitigation design, by using collecting the shear forces at the base, getting tied into the ground below, and then using steel members to absorb the forces that continue up through the structure. And I'm going to switch to a video here briefly. I like to use this as an example of what we're working on. So this is not meant to look like the tower. It is a structural representation of the tower. And if you put it in motion, it starts to show how the building reacts. And one of the things that we're working with is this space here at the bottom. This is that tall, I'll run it again here. This is that tall brewery floor here. And you can see there's a lot of movement there. And then there's just this heavy masonry mass at the top that moves back and forth. So what we'll be doing is capturing all of that energy down here at ground level, and then using a concrete and steel structure to absorb that force and make it so that that heavy movement does not overwhelm the existing masonry and the our new structure inside. So I'm going to go back to the other drawing. So we took the structural information in our office and we wanted to understand what it meant for this building. And so these are 3D drawings that represent the building much more clearly. This is the tower. We're looking at the north elevation, the elevation that faces Capitol Lake. This piece of material right here represents grade. So that's the ground level. Then you can see below the footings, the timber piers, and then this represents the basalt layer down below. So they actually got pretty close to the basalt layer, but we just don't think they could keep up with the water, which is why they went to this sort of hybrid system. What this drawing represents is the blue is the new structure imposed upon the existing masonry structure. And you can see down here below, these red lines are those new micropiles that are bracing the base of the building to the basalt below. And then the blue represents concrete. So this is the concrete level at the under the grade. So this is down at the crawl space. And then we have 2 concrete walls, one on the west side and one on the north side. And then the framework of steel that continues up the structure all the way up to the top of the building. And the one wall that we have that goes from basalt basically up to the top of the building is the north wall, which is the big view wall on this side. So that is the wall that we definitely need to get all the way from basalt all the way up to the top of the tower to hold it in place. This last drawing is just the structure with a very light cartoon of the building involved as well, so you can still keep track of it. And this shows the micropiles in red down below, the concrete at the level of the crawl space, the west wall, new concrete shear wall, which is tied all the way down, the new concrete on the east wall, which is tied through the concrete all the way down, and then once again, the steel frame going up through the building. This is the north wall here, and then there's also, there's a frame sort of midway through where we can grab a hold of a lot of the structure, and then there's some framing on the south wall as well. And then for us to understand it, we drew each of the, what we call the interior elevations. So this is a slice through the building looking at the back of the north wall. And this shows the micropiles, the concrete at the level of the crawl space, and then the blue showing the structure going up on the back of the north wall. We'll come back to this slide in just a minute. This is the back of the west wall. And once again, the micropiles, the concrete at the crawl space level, a full story of a concrete wall at the brew house level. So this is the fermentation room here. And then structure going up the north wall, structure going up the south wall. This drawing is looking at the, let's double check here. Oops. This is the looking at the south wall. I'm sorry, the back of the south wall with concrete here, crawl space, concrete here, and then framing going up that with some struts up at the fifth level. And then this is looking at the back of the east wall. So looking east, this is that tall room where the grain storage was. And once again, concrete going up about half of that wall, concrete down in the crawl space, and then micropiles below. Yeah, I think that covers the scope. This is relatively standard practice for seismic mitigation. You use concrete where you need it, reinforced concrete where you need it, and then steel structure to absorb the seismic loads as they accelerate up through the top of the structure. The criticism that I would expect is that we have steel members that are crossing in front of windows. You can see them here at the, this is the sixth level at the top of the tower. This is at the fifth story. Once again, at the fourth story. And then as we go down through the building, these diagonal members cross in front of the windows. And this is typical seismic mitigation. There are ways to limit the amount of steel that crosses in front of windows, but it tends to increase the amount of steel that you use. It also increases the cost of the project. And we have shown this as the most efficient path to take those loads from the top of the tower down to the base of the building. The other thing that I would expect people to comment about is the use of concrete shear walls down at the main level of the building. Down in the crawl space, they won't be visible, and eventually the water will return and they'll be submerged again. But at this level, the wall of the west wall of the fermentation room would be a new concrete, reinforced concrete wall that was part of the structural reinforcing of the building. We also have that same wall on the east side of the building in the in the grain room as well. So that is an introduction of where we are to date. We're at the, I think technically the architects, my office, we're at the end of schematic design. The structural engineer had to go quite a bit further in his work just to get to this point, where we can analyze the forces, coordinate it with the geotechnical engineering, and get a design put together that is that meets the current building code. And why don't I stop now and answer any questions related to this scope of the work, and then I'll follow up with what we're using as a placeholder for future uses of the building. We've done just a bit of design work to understand what we intend to do so that the structural engineering supports that and would not be in the way of future programming.
Jim, if I was walking into your new structure after completion on the interior, what would I see?
You would see the existing masonry building behind the new steel structure. The steel structure would be limited to the inside the north wall and inside the south wall. And you would see new concrete, reinforced concrete walls on the west side and east side of that ground floor.
So basically, I would see inside the tower or inside the floors an internal seismic structure holding up the building?
That's correct. And the building is still technically holding itself up. This structure is designed to keep the building from, it's not going to tip over, but the forces of the earthquake accelerate through the building, and it would basically pull itself apart. The roof structure and the components, as you go higher up in the building, as the energy accelerates in an earthquake, would fall apart, and there would be parts.
Clarification, the concrete, is that in in crawl space only?
We have concrete definitely in the crawl space, and so those are shear walls that are poured against the existing foundation. There's also concrete on the first level, the main brewery level, on the east wall and on the west wall.
Okay. It's like, looking at this, it's like, wow.
I am, being a history guy, I'm interested in what kind of research you put into this before these drawings were made. It's really impressive. But there have been earthquakes over the past years since that building was built.
Right.
And I wondered if there were news reports or archives of the Schmidt family. They saved everything. And so did they talk about the damage that was done in those past earthquakes, like in '49 or other years that they've had earthquakes? And I've never heard anything that really showed that building was damaged much. And I wondered if you have found anything.
We have not looked specifically for the history of the earthquakes. I can tell you from our work during the masonry portion of this project, there was significant damage at the top of the tower from earthquakes. And it manifests itself in the form of major cracks that have been repaired, and also the disassociation of it's a weird word, but of the roof structure from the masonry itself. And so those the cracks were repaired, and when we replaced the roof, we tied that into the masonry using drag struts and typical masonry reinforcing techniques, so that those portions stayed together. It was not. It is not. Considering the quality of those earthquakes, it was impressive that the damage started only once we got up to about the fourth floor. So.
Is there any,
Thanks.
do you have any number in terms of an earthquake on the Richter scale of such and such, these new seismic improvements would withstand?
That's a good question. And what's weird is the structural engineering doesn't necessarily use the Richter scale as a means by which, you can guarantee the safety of the building. What they use is the energy from the earthquake and the amount of energy that the building is meant to sustain. There's also the types of criteria by which you design are based on human safety, so the building remains, but may not be completely intact, or the building is intact and it is an emergency center. And so I'm guessing that in the city of Tumwater, you have some buildings that have been designed as emergency centers. This building would be designed so that it protects the public.
What about the sway factor? You showed the little diagram where the building has the ability to withstand sway. That's probably not the technical term, but is there a numerical value that is given to that factor?
Yes, and I can share the multi-page engineering report with you. The engineers can explain that better than I can. It's a fairly onerous process by which they evaluate the building and determine the energy. The energy forces is kind of interesting, are created through the International Building Code, which is then amended here in the state of Washington. And it's that code by which these energy forces are calculated. We also use the existing building code, which is also based off the International Building Code, for analyzing the forces by which the engineering is determined. And nationally, there's been a increase in those energy forces. The minimum forces that are used for this type of design. And what's been interesting is that it's been ratcheting up here in the Pacific Northwest. We've typically had fairly large numbers, but because it's a national code, we're actually ratcheting our numbers up into some pretty good safe zones, is one perspective. But it's really catching up places like in the Midwest that have not historically had good seismic design criteria. So that was one of each building code cycle. So we're due for a new building code cycle in, well, believe it or not, we'll be adopting the 2021 building code in this year in 2023. But the criteria by which we evaluate buildings like this will go up again.
Marnie, I volunteer you to read that big document that Jim's gonna send to you and report back at the next meeting.
It's
I
appropriate.
can tell you, I'm always interested in the executive summary.
We'll get that for you.
You got
And
it.
that's what I read in the calculations as well. I like the executive summary. So if it helps, we have our engineer is an expert in unreinforced masonry buildings and has helped actually create a lot of code criteria by which these buildings are evaluated and determined. And it's always interesting to go through the building with them, because And typically, I see things as an architect, and they take their radar is a lot more sensitive than mine to what they're looking for.
I find it interesting that the concrete is on the east and west, but your steel structure's on the north and south. I find that interesting.
It has to do with where we have the full capacity to get up to the top of the building. And also, we didn't want to put concrete on the walls that had a lot of windows. So the north and the south side were out. We wanted to keep those as open as possible. And the east and west side had a much greater opportunity to get a lot more sheer capacity with the amount of openings that were there.
I'm impressed with your presentation. I'm overwhelmed without even reading that big thick book. But it's amazing to me that people in Turkey might not hire you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important work.
Commission member, do you have any comments or questions?
I do have another question that maybe goes beyond Jim's scope, because this is more of a interior work that's going to be done eventually. That first floor is a lot of nice ceramic tiles on the floor and on the walls where they keep things sanitary, and those will be disrupted or torn down, and hopefully will be replaced as it's remodeled inside. And I don't know if
That's a great question.
Yeah, it is.
And I want to make sure that you understand the concrete inside is like. So, Jim, if you or Anna could talk to that, and I'm curious, if you're driving those micro piles, are you driving them through the first floor and then covering that with concrete, or are you driving those under the building?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's start with the micro piles. Those will be driven in the crawl space, and they're actually not. The micro piles are drilled, and so we don't want to have we don't want to be driving piles under this building at this point. The drilling gives us a lot more accuracy, and it gives us a lot more of a calculatable seismic piece of structure to use. And so the contractor that does this work will do what we did, which is pump out the crawl space. They'll likely clean it out as well. There was probably a couple feet of muck at the bottom of that. You probably couldn't tell from the photos, but we were standing on whatever was sort of floatable and on top of the mud that was down there. And then, but they'll clean that out. They'll do their construction work and do the micropiles and then concrete, and then work their way up through the building with the remaining concrete work and steel. Regarding the tiles, we have had many discussions about the tiles on the ground floor, and if there was another way to do this work, we would propose it and avoid the concrete on that level. But the concrete does an incredible job of providing a sheer backbone for the steel structure, and we will work on in future presentations. We'll work up a plan for the tile work and how we maintain a sense of the historic structure with those interventions.
State Capitol in California had a huge floor made out of tile and a beautiful design. And I asked a question to the tour guide about that floor, and they individually removed each tile, which is like 1 square inch, and there's millions of them. And they numbered them, and lo and behold, they returned them to the exact same location. So I think Prosper would probably like to see that done if it's possible.
Yeah, by then I might be my great-grandkids handling it.
Any other comments or questions? You did a nice job on presentation. I appreciate your illustrations, because for people like me that like to hear it but also like to see it, I truly appreciate your drawings.
Yes.
So whoever did the drawings, Jim, pat them on the back and give them a pay increase.
I'll tell Trey in the morning. He does a nice job, and we take a pride in creating information that is understandable. And we tried with our traditional drawings, and it was not presenting in a way that we thought was meaningful. So we went to this. I have a couple more drawings. If everyone wants to sign off, I'm not sure what time it is, but I've got a couple more drawings that are relevant if you're still on board.
Can we have a
Sure.
show of,
Sounds like an encore.
can we have a show of hands of commissioners that would like to see just a sneak peek at what future use might look like from a building perspective?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right.
So we're not trying to win this project with fancy drawings. What we're trying to do is explain, so I'm going to zoom out again here. We're trying to explain how this building works with the building code and how it would work for somebody to actually occupy this space. And so we did two versions. So version 1 is what you see here. This is, I'll zoom in here in just a minute. This is the ground floor, level 2, level 3, 4, and 5. And in order to occupy the building safely, we need to have 2 sets of stairs, exits basically from each floor. And because it's likely going to be a public building, we need an elevator as well. And we anticipated bathrooms and things like that. And so what these drawings hopefully illustrate is that it was a great building for vertical gravity brewing, but it does not work well for occupying it here in 2023. So this is the floor plan. And by the time we put in legal stairs that wind back on each other, legal stairs here and potentially an elevator here, the original elevator location is too small. We really start to eat up the floor plan and take away from the quality of the building space. We just fill it basically with access. And moving up through the space on the second floor, we have to provide stairs and access through, and then bathrooms. And we really, there's very little building left by the time that we create all the things that turn it into a building for 2023. As you go up even further, it just becomes basically an access tower. So stairs in blue, green is available program space. These are existing openings in the floor. This is level 4. We get a little bit more space up here, but level 4 is technically the end of our legal status in the building. If we include fire sprinklers and use like I said, the existing building code and the new building code, the current building code, we literally run out of legal access to these spaces in the building. So we're getting up towards the top of the tower now. So we did this drawing to illustrate that we're going to need to be more creative than just moving into this building. And so we did a second version that, zoom in again here. Sorry for the motion here. Let's situate it. This drawing shows the tower here on this side. It shows one stairway climbing up through the grain room, and then an elevator and a stair outside the building. It shows the concrete structure that's to the east, off to the still to the east, staying put, and then we build an entrance pavilion that connects the two buildings. So here's the tower. Capitol Lake is off to the top of the drawing. Here's the concrete building, the old warehouse to the east, and then we would build a connection here so that you would enter the building from grade here. So climbing up from grade up to a pavilion entrance, enter the building, and then you would have access to the building to climb up either from the elevator, stairs, these stairs, climbing up, and then we imagine this as a restaurant on this side, bathrooms and kitchen. These bathrooms would also serve the tower so that we didn't have to use program space. It's limited over there. And then it really, the amount of green space, which is the program space in the tower, we maximize that. So this is the ground floor of that. And then climbing up through the building, you can see this is the second floor. This would be the access tower. So we'd have stairs here, elevator here, a walkway through the middle, and then we have a lot more program space available in the historic tower on that floor. And as you go up, we maximize the amount of green, which is the usable floor space within the tower. And then to help you visualize it, we did a 3D version again. And I'll zoom in down here at the bottom to start off with. So here is the building on the right, maximizing its open space and use. We would build a simple pavilion, likely a lot of glass that connects the two. And then this is the concrete building to the east that is possibly a restaurant. And then we would connect it all with the plaza to get you up to that grade level and into the building and then into the space on the right.
Does the city now own the other building or no?
Yeah,
Jim,
so
it sounds like a great idea. Now we're gonna have to concentrate on preserving and utilizing the tower. You got 10 million owners that want a whole lot more money than the thing is worth to build it into the warehouse area. But it's a nice idea, and it certainly makes the tower more usable and
Yeah.
what have you. You even haven't talked about accessibility to the buildings and parking, but that's another story. And what are you gonna do about the springs that are in that Capitol Way area? I forget the name, where it's located for sure, but you have a lot of water coming out of the hillside there.
So the reason that we did these drawings was to have a sense of the future of this project so that the seismic work that we're proposing, so that this work is not, one, in the way of that, and two, that it makes sense that the seismic work is in the right spot and doing what it needs to do. We just felt like we could create a plan for installing seismic mitigation into this building, but without at least some sense of what the ending might look like. So without a sense of this, we weren't sure that we were putting in the right spot. So that's the whole reason that we did this scope. I'm not trying to sell you on a new project, or we're trying to just pay for the current one, but I did want to give you a sense of where it might go so that we understand if we did, for instance, want to do this type of project, we would want to know where all of these pieces were before we did that seismic work. With this type of project, we're a lot freer to put that seismic work in the right spot and know that we're preserving the building, making it so that there is a way to build this in the future. So that's why we did this programming scope.
I like the dreams.
Yeah.
And Charlesford's great grandkids will hopefully see that
And pay for it.
and pay for it, yeah. Commission members, are there any comments or questions you'd like to make at this point?
Yeah, I'll go.
And do you have a,
Sorry, should I continue?
Yes,
go ahead.
go ahead, Alex.
It'll be quick. So I just wanted to say thank you to Jim for the awesome presentation. Everything makes perfect sense, which I was not sure would be the case. I thought maybe this would get more confusing than that. And I think that the design is beautiful and simple and makes perfect sense. And I appreciate your forethought in coming up with questions that you thought would come up. I found that really helpful. And I'll just go ahead and speak to those two things super quickly. The steel in front of the windows is perfectly all right with me personally. But I think that also the discussion of the interior concrete was somewhat fruitful in this meeting. I too would lean toward preserving the actual tiles if possible. Otherwise, I had just a couple of quick ideas to shoot onto the record. Maybe it could be a good place to show projections of videos for educational purposes, and or perhaps it could be stamped, like have the concrete be stamped in a pattern that was suggestive or reflexive of the old design. But anyways, I just wanted to say thank you for thinking of questions, anticipating them. And then super quickly, I was going to see if you have an updated estimate for the cost. Thank you.
We do not, and we will, it's sort of the next step. So we wanted to present this information first to you so that you could kind of grasp what's going on. If we were way off base from what people were expecting and anticipating, we wanted to know that early on. As I said, the structural engineer is pretty far along, so we actually have a cost estimator ready to go on estimating, and the structural engineer needs to button up a few of his large calculation documents to make sure that he's in the right spot, and then we can do a cost estimate. So that's next steps.
Good.
Ann, I think it's your turn.
Yes, I would like to close this out and answer any questions I can, but first, I did want to thank Jim and his team again. They've been working on the Brew Tower since 2014. They know the building inside and out and care for it as if it was their own, and it may be in the future. But I wanted to make really sure the build. This is not the architect gone wild. I actually requested that Jim and his team work on a future use that includes what I call the Zydeco shed and a brand new building that connect the two. So that work was done at my request, and it was endorsed and authorized by John Doan. And about 9 months ago, I actually met with the new owner of the historic properties and pitched it to them. They're very excited about it. And we continue to have conversations about who might own the Zydeco shed and how we might build that connecting building. And it does add to the budget, but there is a cost savings in terms of mechanicals and future improvements. So the architect is working in our direction, not on his own. And then, if that was a concern, and then we, as Jim said, we've had extensive conversations about the tile inside, what will be expected of us with archaeology and historic preservation, what their recommendations will be. And it's very likely that we'll be working with our consultant from Northwest Vernacular. And because the most important thing in this phase is protecting the building, seismic will likely, the best solution will be approved, and then we'll have to decide how the interior space, whether we recreate space or if our historic preservation commissioners come down and gently remove tiles and number them. So there's more to come, and Jim started his last presentation with reminding everyone that when I walk in the building, the first thing I say on the main floor is I talk about the tiles and how it speaks to the use of the building. And so I'm gonna have to come up with a new entry speech. But it's a priority. We're gonna find a way and we'll come back to you.
So, and just as a thought, I don't know if there's ever a place for doing fundraising tiles like the train station did. We have
Mhm.
3 or 4 tiles there for our kids. But I mean, that would be an exciting link for the people of Tumwater to their history, and also the revised renovated brew tower. So just a suggestion.
Thank you. And I think I have a volunteer helper.
Dan, I see a little hand on your image. Are you asking to be recognized? Okay, I'm new to this Zoom meeting stuff, so I apologize, but anyway, there's a little hand like this up there, and I'm wondering if you wanted to make a comment. Apparently not?
No, but thank you for asking. It's I don't know what it's me moving.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the cause before I ask for adjournment? Anything else?
Just a quickie note that of compliments to Dave McHenry, who's not here tonight, but he made a good presentation of the Oregon Trail extension for Old 99 and made that to City Council, and I thought
Yes, the council did adopt your resolution.
Oh,
Good.
good.
I should put that up.
Good.
which goes to what or the national level next?
County commissioners and then state.
Anyway, congratulations to him for following through.
Yeah, good.
The next meeting is on March 16th. I'd like to have a motion for adjournment.
I'll move we adjourn.
I got 2 people at the same time. So we have a motion and a second.
So all in favor, leave?
All in favor who want to leave, raise your hand. All who want to stay, stay. Jim, that includes you.
I'm leaving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, your image up there. The hands moved. It's right above Marnie's head now on my screen anyway.
Yeah, I think. that's good.
Anyway, take care. Have a good week. See you next March 16, maybe.
Thank
And the
you.
meeting only lasted almost 2 hours. Blame that on Chuck. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah.